Violence continues for a third week in Sudan. However, the army and a rival paramilitary faction have agreed to extend a shaky humanitarian ceasefire by another 72 hours. Meanwhile, Canada is relocating its efforts to get stranded Canadians out of the East African country. The change in escape routes from Sudan's main airport in the capital to a distant port city comes amid deteriorating security conditions. Rescue operations in Sudan continue to be impacted by intense fighting. However, there are on-the-ground rescues happening with the help of veteran-led nonprofit organizations. Well, joining us now to give us the latest updates on what's happening in Sudan amid efforts to rescue stranded North Americans is Mr. Bryan Stern. He is a combat veteran, Purple Heart recipient, and founder and CEO of Project Dynamo, a veteran-led nonprofit international search and rescue organization. He joins us today from Egypt. Mr. Stern, thank you again for your time today.
Thanks for having us. I appreciate it.
Now, you currently have a team on the ground in Sudan. So what have you been hearing from them regarding the situation in the country amid this fragile ceasefire?
Well, we're a donor-funded organization. We just did the first rescue of Americans by air in the history of this war. The U.S. military has been doing boats primarily, and some ground convoys, but we've been doing ground convoys, and we did the first air operation this morning, rescuing over 80 Americans to Egypt, to Cairo, Egypt. The situation on the ground is deteriorating rapidly. This is the word, the civil war is the worst kind of war to have. Both sides are heavily armed. There's a lot of foreign influence on both sides, and both sides know the streets. And war is always terrible in Africa. So I predict this getting a lot worse before it gets better.
And can you tell us where your team is situated amid this escalating violence in key cities like the capital of Khartoum and Darfur?
We have people all over the place, but concentrated in Khartoum and Port Sudan.
All right. And how's your team conducting these evacuations? You mentioned air evacuations, but flights out of the Khartoum airport have ended. So is this primarily through Port Sudan? Is your team utilizing other airports? Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yeah, so we just did our first one. It's the first one of the war for the Americans. It was a charter aircraft into Port Sudan. So we did buses from Khartoum to Port Sudan, and then charter aircraft, which is also a first of this war, out of Port Sudan to Cairo. The plane originated in Doha, went from Doha to Port Sudan across. Along the way, one of our buses was attacked by the RSF, where they were robbed. They stole their phones and their money and all their personal effects, and kind of left them to die on the road. So they didn't. They survived, thank God, but very complicated, very, very, very complicated.
Thank goodness they did survive. So how many people have you been able to rescue so far?
So our philosophy is to go from the hot zone to the warm zone to the cold zone. So basically where there's active fighting with people getting shot in the streets, to a warm zone where it's still potentially risky, but significantly safer, to a cold zone where it is truly safe. So what that looks like is going from Khartoum to Port Sudan to Egypt in this case. We did almost 90 yesterday, which is almost the size of the U.S. embassy that was evacuated, if you think about it. And we've done about double that by ground from hot zone to warm zone to Port Sudan.
And has your team been in contact with any Canadian presence in the region? Can you update us on the rescue operations of Canadians in particular, by any chance?
Yeah, we're international, so I'm happy to evacuate Canadians. I think I need to check, but I think we did some Canadians on our in fact, I know we did Canadians on our buses. We did not do Canadians on the flight today for some reason. I think they got out through the Canadian military by air, through the Canadian forces.
All right. So what do we know so far about the Sudanese who are to be left behind amid this violence? How do you see things playing out from your experience?
I think it's going to be pretty terrible. This is the third war zone that Dynamo is active in. First, Afghanistan, where we're still active. We just did an operation there yesterday, pardon me. We are still active in Ukraine and Russia, and now here. So I think this is going to play out terrible. War is always bad. Armies fight each other. That's what they do. Politicians kill each other. That's what they do. But the people that pay the highest price are the civilians in the middle. And that's really who Dynamo seeks to serve. That's why this is why we're raising money. ProjectDynamo.org is my website. Every dollar goes to an operation. These people will die if they are stuck there. It's just a fact. So without government help and foreign help and NGO help like Project Dynamo, these people really don't have a lifeline to get out of the way of the armies that are killing each other.